Good evening, known world. I am Excellency Rahmut al-Tayyiba, coming to you from the Barony of Bronzehelm in the Kingdom of Artemisia. And with me tonight, we do have Baron Ulrich MacNaughtine. But before I have him introduce himself, I am going to just do a huge fangirl shout out to an amazing individual, Sir Helga, who won Coronet for the yes, Principality of the Mists by her own hand. And the pictures, the joy, the after final blow for her consort Hansa, where she jumped on him, was beyond belief. And we can't be more happy for her from, her show Between Two Peers, for being a guest host on a bazillion different shows, from her and His Grace Sean's analyzing fights together. She's just an amazing human being, and I'm so proud and happy for her. So I had to do a little fangirl shout out. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, Baron Ulrich, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I am Baron Ulrich AeoWulf MacNaughtine, and I am from the Kingdom of Northshield. I originally started about 30 years ago, and that was back when it was part of Mid-Realm. So traveling was even further at that time. I can't even remember, like 12 states, 3 provinces. It's just crazy. And I moved down to Alabama for 8 years, down to the Kingdom of Meridies. Then I was over in the Kingdom of Ontier for about 3 years, and then I moved back to Northshield. I've been there since about 2010.
Well, with the exception of still being a world traveler, you still wind up all over the place.
Yes. I always say I have one of the greatest jobs, mainly because, well, instead of just staying in one area, I do get to travel. And yes, they do get to, they do pay for my armor to be shipped with me. So it gets to be a little bit of a stretch trying to pull a bag of armor over into Germany and have every single time someone inspects it, because I would get that nice little inspection sticker. We weren't sure exactly what was this, and so it's quite interesting. But yeah, I get to go. I think I've gone to every single kingdom except for Australia so far, and I still get to go back many times. So it in fact, last fall in October, I went to Hawaii, and just no other feeling to have fighters practice on the beach, on the North Shore in Hawaii. So I love my job.
It sounds amazing. I don't know how we can relocate the beach from Hawaii to Montana, which is the part of Artemisia that I live in, because fighter practice here is definitely nowhere as sandy beach, sun shining, temperate climate kind of ordeal. Ooh, a KK Productions retreat. Ooh, Cal, I like the way you think. Now, some of our viewers might recognize you. You do have an online presence. You have many amazing videos that you share with your series that you do. Let's just dive just a little about that before we go into a super heavy topic, because I think it's worth noting that I actually met you through your show, because it was time with Baron Eric. Learn to do this, learn to do that. And it wasn't all like the same thing. It was multiple, spheres of knowledge that you shared.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I was, of course, when the pandemic occurred, I was like, you know what? We can just kind of stay in like pause mode and then wait for whatever. And I'm not a pause mode person. And I'm thinking, what can we do now to at least just keep people's minds going? And I was like, you know what? I started watching a whole bunch of other people's podcasts on different things. And I'm like, this is one thing that has been kind of I'm not going to say neglected, but really hard to categorize or put into a wide sphere of accessibility. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start with simple, basic stuff that I know I always wanted to find out when I was back in college and stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start doing it and throw it out there and see what sticks. And I've had a really good turnout from it. And the interesting thing about it is, instead of just doing it, you really do have to put a lot of research into what are you doing. So I was like, all right, I'm going to start with fighting, or correction, I started with brewing. I'm going to do brewing. Okay, and that went good. All right, I'm going to do some fighting. I was like, hey, this is great. And then my numbers actually went down. And I'm going, huh, all right, you know what? I'll try something else. Oh, my numbers went up. And then they went down. And I'm going, what's going on? And I started realizing, oh, sorry.
It does seem diversity attracts more attention than just the same kind of status quo, that just kind of baselines.
It does. And so I was like, you know what? I need to expand even more now. And I need to, all right, we're going to have one episode of brewing. Then we're going to have one episode of dancing. And I'm going to call it the week of drinking and dancing and just getting stupid. All right, this is that week. And then its next one is going to be, all right, I'm going to make food and some other stuff. So just keep on trying different things to, number one, keep growing interest, but also find out what really people want to learn about. And strangely enough, the biggest turnout of numbers that I always got was always about food. And I'm like, oh,
yeah, I was going to say,
the biggest food person.
I have favorite episodes. So I'm going to recommend that everybody check out your show because it is good. Your videos are super useful. They're super relevant. They're insightful. They give you, experience and knowledge. Yeah. The rice video was funny. But we do have a serious topic that we want to talk about. We're going to talk about a little bit of disparity when it comes to individuals in the military. And because of the nature when they join the military and they're in the service, it kind of gives them a different path. And it's definitely a more difficult kind of path. And you have experience with this. So I think we should kind of let's talk about this a bit.
Thank you. Yeah, some of the things that I've seen first occurred when I was just in the National Guard, but I still did a lot less, but I still did do some traveling. And every time that I went someplace when I was with the military, it was like, oh wow, this guy is like really cool. I'd never seen this person fight this way before. Well, that's because they were in a different kingdom. They learned a different style. And I'm like, hey, this is great. But after like 2 or 3 years, they would leave. And I was like, oh, so does that make it really hard? And they were like, it makes it almost impossible. And this was well before 9/11. And I was like, oh man, that's not cool.
It's kind of, in a way, devastating. It's taken that shine off your dream when you have that
starting over and over again.
Repeatedly.
Yeah, it gets very disheartening. And I was like, oh man, I don't know what I can do, but I can just try and like support you for right now. Well, then 9/11 occurred, and then I got activated. And then I started seeing that was actually happening to me a lot. It was like, okay, I want to fight in Crown. Well, we can't let you fight in Crown. What happens if you get activated? And I'm like, what? I mean, I can give you the rules. Nah, we're, and I hate to say, everyone was too scared at that point because they don't know what's going on. They don't know the duration. And it was kind of like, I hate to say it, a different version of what the pandemic was like. And this is why I see this pandemic as affecting everyone as the way it affected me for quite a bit and other people before. And I'm like, you know what? I have seen this. It happened to me. I don't want this to happen to other people. And we can fix it. We can change it. We can do different things, keep people active, to come up with new ideas.
Well, in that whole, regardless of your path, whether you're service, whether you're arts and science, whether you're rapier, whether you're armored combat, having, established a foundation at one place and then you have orders to move completely across the country to another kingdom, and you have to kind of start over, or if you have a mentor or peer kind of situation, and you're an associate to somebody, have them reach out for you and with you to try to find a foster, and that's assuming that not only did you get sent from one kingdom to another, but you're not actually active duty and deployed, overseas, because that puts another
strange mixture. Yeah. Because you don't really know where you fall, or as they say, where are you in the process? It's a totally different process. And unless someone who's actually gone through that is like, you know what, I know what you're going through. I'm going to speak for you. I'm going to mentor you. I'm going to say, all right, while you're gone, I'm going to keep bringing your name up, or I'm going to mention, oh, when he gets back, I'm going to have you fight my squire, and all this stuff, which is one of the things that kind of really needed to happen, and it didn't. But that's also, well, my knight also got, because my knight is still down in Meridies, but he kind of like stopped playing. Well, I need to find a new sponsor. My Pelican is actually over in the Eastern Kingdom. So it's like,
you're all over the place from all your
I'm
travels.
all over the place.
And this is a
All
common
my mentors are all over the place.
but that's very common for military personnel who play in the SCA.
It is.
And if they can't find that nice kind of balance and make it work, because each kingdom has different policies, they have different traditions and different culture. Like an armored combat fighter or a shiv fighter is not the same in Meridies as it is in Artemisia. Yes, the principles are the same, but the culture is different. And
Very much, even the process.
And having to adapt when you move from one kingdom to another. You might be pretty far on your process, in your path in one kingdom, and you relocate to another kingdom who don't know anything about it. So it's a complete reset, and it still puts you that much further back on your path.
It does. And like for me, it was kind of the same way when I got deployed. It was like, all right, you're doing great. And then I'm deployed for a year, and they're like, oh, you're back? And I'm like, yeah, I'm back. Gee, it's like, oh, okay, well. And it's like, no. At that point, it's like, okay, like I said, okay, they're not playing, but we're still going to promote. We're still going to mention. But unless you have some really good mentors or sponsors that will do that, it's kind of hard to keep the ball rolling. I mean, I can understand if it gets paused.
Oh, yep. Jermaine
going back is not good. Sorry, was it?
Jermaine just commented that hard resetting every 1 to 3 years sucks. Jermaine, also another service member. Thank you for your service, Jermaine. Like, she knows the pain that you went through. And it's not. It's kind of everybody who happens to be in that. And even if you're not in the military, if you're in a service industry where you travel, or wind up moving, if you work for, any of the natural resources, the mining, fracking, oil industry, if you happen to be, in transportation, those are industries that tend to bebop around the country a lot. And
Especially
they really,
now, like for contract nurses and stuff who travel a lot, but also work 12 hours, usually
Mhm.
on weekends. It's like, oh, well, I guess they quit. No, they're working, they have a life. And I hate to
Mhm.
say it too, sometimes, oh, well, they got married and all of a sudden they have kids. Well, they're not playing anymore. No, they have kids. They're at that stage where they're just taking a little bit of a break. They're still active, probably not as active as before,
Mhm.
but we shouldn't make it a bad thing.
So, what strategies, if you could, would you recommend being implemented to help kind of deal with that disparity and to encourage the people who happen to either be in a career that causes that, go through a lifestyle change where suddenly you're not able to play, or you are active military or former military and you've gone through those resets? What would you recommend that the SCA, if you could have a magic wand and bop the SCA on the head, what would you have them tweak that would definitely encourage retention of those individuals?
I would definitely, and I've thought about this before, and what I think needs to be brought up is in all the peer circles, all four of them, say, all right, we want to designate 3 individuals that have had experience about this, that knows how to support and implement this. And when someone moves, it's like, all right, this person's here. All right, we're going to give you Sir Damien. Damien, I want you to go talk to this person, find out them, work on their SEA resume, find out who their prior group was, who their night marshal, get all this information. So all of a sudden, instead of them starting over, they're getting a much better mentorship and support structure for that. And I called it like a mentorship program.
Mhm.
But even that, like when people move from, oh, I'm now from Montana and I moved to Colorado,
Mhm.
a lot of groups should have a nice mentorship program where they're like, okay, what's going on? You know what? You're doing uh, beating. Okay, the Laurel for beating is this person. Let me go and get you in contact. So have like a much better relationship. An example of that is we had a guy, ex-Marine, I'm Army, the two difference. But anyway, but he was like, I want to get some help and I want to get like a mentor aspect. And because he was a Marine and, you know, there's some stress involved
Mhm.
from service and stuff like that. It was like not many people were directly looking at him. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Would you like to be my man at arms? And he's like, yeah, that would be great. And then from there, then he transferred over to be a squire to one of the knights in our group. And then he got knighted about 4 years ago. So it's one of those things where you need to have that built-in structure, that built-in support for certain aspects. And for me, like I said, it's very personal. So for me, I really kind of focus on prior service people and certain activities that
Mhm.
because of this.
Well, and I know it's not true. We will say that everybody should be a chatelaine, but then that's not always the case. But it's almost the responsibility of every community in the SDA to kind of look at when somebody comes in from a different area and you start talking to them to find out their history. And if they say, oh, yeah, I've been playing, in the SCA for 10 years, I just got, orders and moved out here, last month, and I saw that there was a group and I want to play. I've got this, and this. So and so is my knight in this kingdom. All right. Well, it's not hard to get them in touch with somebody who can help them, and then reach out to their knight, reach out to, you know, their local baronage, reach out to somebody in that area, especially now in the electronic age.
Oh, definitely.
And you brought up something that is pretty cool that you recommend because it definitely helps. And I think it's multi purpose as far as retention is concerned. which you said the SCA resume. Now, some of us know about it, some of us don't. The SCA resume is kind of a neat little thing where you basically write up a resume of all the things you've done in the SCA. Some of the peer associate relationships, your peers will ask you to make a resume. You want to talk a little bit about this?
When I first got protéged, my Pelican was like, all right, give me your SCA resume as soon as you can. And I typed back, what is an SCA resume? And she's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, it was actually never heard of it before. And I was like, very confused. I was like, why do I need a resume? I mean, aren't you the one that's kind of speaking for me? And it was like, no, you have to understand that you need to have a way, not just to show off yourself, but if you want to hold a higher level position, like a kingdom level position, or even a BOD position, you're going to need a resume. And it's like, okay, that makes sense. I didn't really think of that. And then I'm like, okay, can someone send me an example of a resume? And then I heard crickets for months. And I'm like, does anyone have an SCA resume? And then I got a few of them. And I'm like, okay. And I looked at them. I'm like, well, this is just like a regular resume. But okay, some of them are like, make sure you put all your positions on. Make sure you put all your awards on. Make sure you put down these tournaments that you were in. Like if you came in the top 3 or 4, do all this. And it was like, okay, so you want a resume specifically for being a knight? Are you looking for a resume to be specifically for a Pelican? And it's like there's different versions of it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, but I do a lot. And I kind of want to put all that on there. And it's also one of the things where I put in the bottom section, it's kind of like, all right, this is my SCA stuff. And this is also some of the key things I've done in my personal life, which I think is valuable. So I put that in there. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things where there's a lot of different versions of resumes. You really need to build a resume that makes you happy. The one that's like, you know what, this is good. I like this part. I can tweak this part. And then when you actually want to, all right, I want to be the kingdom archery marshal. Well, then you put on your cover letter. All right, I'm applying for this position. This is what I've done. And yet you can take out and focus those specific things.
Just like you would for a regular career. Like if you're applying for a job and you've got a resume, you cater your resume to the type of industry you're applying for. You know, you're not going to give the same resume that you would go like, hey, I want to work, as a trainer at this restaurant, as you are going to applying for a job as a tax auditor at IRS. You're going to cater your resume for the position you're applying for.
Definitely. And one of the nice things too is you can take portions of your job from there and put it on your civilian resume and say, I was the, unfortunately, when you transition, you have to change wordage because some people don't understand. This makes no sense.
What's the event steward? What's a feast steward? I don't understand.
What's a seneschal? I was the president of a nonprofit organization for 2 years of 63 people. People understand that because I was seneschal of the barony of the Netherlands, and they're like, "You were in the Netherlands? No, it's a barony of the Netherlands. It's a barony in the Netherlands. Oh my God, no,
no." Well, it's that translating the jargon that we use in the SCA from SCA jargon to common vernacular that an employer would understand who's never heard about the SCA or has a knowledge of that jargon.
Unless you get an employee or employer that's like, wait a minute, is this like the SCA? I'm like, holy crap, yeah.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Which I've had a few times. It's like, all right, so where's the local fighters practice?
And that's recruitment, and that's an opportunity, which leads to retention, because retention starts at recruitment.
There you go.
One of the things too, if you take your SCA resume and you turn it into a nice electronic format, if you are a person who utilizes websites for your path, kind of has like an online vlog journal of your path, you can post that there and make those updates to it right there so that everybody can see it, which makes it readily available to anybody. But then also taking that, anytime you run an event, you're volunteering as an event organizer. Anytime you volunteer at a demo, at a library, at a school, that's community service.
Mm-hmm.
Most employers look at that corporate volunteerism, community service, as an added bonus when they are looking at a candidate. They want somebody who's involved in their community. They want somebody who is interested in doing things outside the realm of just work that improve, their area. So it's
definitely.
kind of that nice transition where, hey, not only does this help you in the SCA by having an SCA resume, but then you can transfer it to your mundane resume and use that for mundane life.
Especially like if you have like a nice position like exchequer or anything like that, where it's like, mm-hmm. I have been the financial officer mm-hmm. for a nonprofit again, and have dealt with international money from Canada to the US, all this other stuff. So they're understanding, oh, okay, so this person is not, as you said, kind of more well-rounded, but they're also not just, well, they're just doing as little as they can. They're mm-hmm. being progressive. They're doing new things. Mm-hmm. So it's like,
Alex
what it was like 8 years ago is different than 3 months ago.
Definitely. Alex goes Chamberlain equals I have managerial experience 100%, because Chamberlain or Seneschal, they're policy officers for the SCA. They're the local policy, but they're the ones who interpret that either to their baronage or to their shire, or their canton, whatever group it happens to be. So that is managerial experience. So, hey, I've only ever worked at fast food. I'm going to apply for this, entry-level job. Look, I have managerial experience that's not fast food related. It has nothing to do with me flipping burgers. I manage people in a nonprofit.
Yeah, to include creating travel schedules, volunteer mm-hmm. Programs, gift exchanges, everything like mm-hmm. that, where got to keep track of all that.
Fundraisers.
Oh, yeah.
So your electronic SCA resume has so many amazing things to help you within the SCA, but also mundanely. But within the SCA, for the individuals who happen to have college students, military, travel nurses, doctors, truck drivers, transportation, any career where you wind up having to relocate, having that SCA resume definitely is kind of a crucial and vital tool.
It does. And then, like I said, I put some of my personal stuff mm-hmm. on my SCA resume. They're like, well, can you really handle this? Well, let's see. On the third thing, it said I was the mayor of a city. So
sure.
You think I can probably handle that?
I think that says public speaking skills and reading and writing. You're understanding policies.
So many contracts.
Wrangling cats. But it's definitely something to help. Now, when it comes to how every different kingdom has the different traditions and the different culture, although some of the policies may be different, the core of the policies generally are all based off Corpora and generally similar. What kind of cultural and traditional discrepancies do you find or have found that yourself or others that you know of kind of dealt with the relocation?
One of the big things is a lot of rules were changed after 9/11. And those were, I don't want to say put in because of fear or being scared of what could happen, but they put it in to try and, in their minds, stabilize the U.S. had just went into turmoil. So let's try and stabilize this by kind of making it as easy, as simple as possible. Okay, that's good, but then you're still kind of isolating people who still want to try and do stuff. And one of the things that occurred in many kingdoms was, all right, instead of you have to be here for a full year before you can fight in Crown, now you have to be here for 2 years before you can fight in Crown. Oh, well, I just came back from Afghanistan. Oh, so you weren't here last year. So you got to wait 2 more years to fight in Crown.
But I lived here. All my stuff was here. I was just away working.
Right. Or, hey, we're just really scared that you could win, you become king, and then all of a sudden you're going to be deployed, and we don't want that. But there's been other kings and queens who have died, not from military, but from something else. And they were able to reign on their own. What's the difference on that? They went straight to really condensed policies compared to, what we really need to do is we need to look at every single individual person. And to me, when they reduced a lot of these to this, a lot of crowns went from, oh, we got 65 people, we're now down to 28. We're going to look at peering these people, but why should we peer them if they're going to be moving? Because then they're not part of our peer numbers for the kingdom. Different things like that, where sometimes people are like, oh, well, why should we really try and recruit college kids? Because as soon as they get done, they're going to move someplace else. That doesn't mean that they're going to leave the SCA. They're going to go someplace and go, oh man, I started in this really cool group. And that's the best part. But some people look at it as, well, if we made you, we should keep you. And if we're not, I don't want to put the time in. That's not right.
And that definitely is a very self-centric kind of view of the SCA. And definitely with the pandemic, we need to start transitioning that view. And you can see it more now via social media. It's definitely transitioning to a more SCA as a whole. Like, yeah, we might be one kingdom here and one kingdom here, but guess what? One SCA.
Exactly.
So looking at that as a whole, well, so this person won.
Excuse me, can I just stop you real quickly? Yeah. I think you should have another one of these, and it just says one SCA, because that is
Cal,
perfect answer.
I think we need a new sticker for Redbubble. Can we get one SCA or something amazingly cool along those lines? Yeah.
No, you're exactly right. That is exactly what needs, and especially with the pandemic, we need to all support each other, and especially like right now, not only is it just supporting, as I had one of my classes was recruiting and retention, because not only we are losing people from retention, but the opportunity to recruit now is so massive because of, hey, my D&D group collapsed, my board gaming group collapsed. Well, there's a whole bunch of people out there that want to do something.
The local fiber spinning group has whittled down that's non-SCA, and I work with a gal and she does that on her side. And I'm like, hey, guess what? Come to the SCA. We do fiber spinning too. We'll take you. You could
Exactly.
teach. It'll be great.
And especially now with families that, hey, they have the kids that have been in the house just doing Zoom classes. Getting the kids out is the best opportunity to really get the next generation of SEA people involved. So, hey, kids activities. Let's get a whole bunch of boffer stuff. Let's get a whole bunch of horse heads on a stick and just play equestrian games for the kids.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden,
Or
the
youth
parents will be
fighting.
like, exactly. Just all the parents will be like, oh my God, please, I'm just going to go there just so my kids have new friends.
Exactly. Get out of the house. You're looking like a vampire. That's not a comment about my paleness. I spent time in the sun, people. This is not the light washing me out. This is how pale I am. I was out gardening and it didn't change. We have a question by our friend Moon. What are your opinions on kingdoms that failed or refused to embrace the online options?
That is a great question, because that has happened actually quite a lot. Some kingdoms have really embraced it and pushed forward. Like Atlantia just went crazy. Excellent job. We're putting everything online. We're going to have universities. It's like, all right, they transitioned. They're not saying this is what it is now. This is what it currently is, to keep stuff going, get more people active. And the thing that was best about that was it wasn't just in their kingdom. It was all over the one SCA.
One SCA.
And it was great, because it was a great chance to, all right, I want to teach a class on dancing. All of a sudden, it was like there's a brand new group of people that I had not seen as dance teachers. And one of them actually got laureled in dancing this last year, which is freaking awesome. Congratulations. I believe her name is Kenda. So, but there are other kingdoms that I want to say refused, but really, really put a hindrance on, because, well, we don't want hybrid. We don't want online only, because that's not what we're trying to become. You're not trying to become it. You're just trying to create a bridge from what it was to what it is now to what it will be later.
Definitely, because cultures evolve, cultures change. SCA has an age of main players that are getting older. And if we want to keep going, we have to get more diverse and have younger members. And younger members are internet savvy, social media, they play video games. I can't tell you how many conversations I have with my 22-year-old son about video games and how it relates to the SCA. I keep trying to get him to come on, but he's spectrum disorder and that's not his bag.
I was actually talking to someone just a few days ago, and they said that they created a room inside a not World of Warcraft, Minecraft. So they had an area, and you could go build a cottage the way that you want to, and then they would have their meetings,
SCA meetings,
either in a big room or around a fire. And I'm like, oh my God, I really wish I would have thought of this.
That's my son's dream right there.
Awesome.
Right there is turn SCA into Minecraft, and totally there.
But I do believe that what you said before too, some of the older generations are not as tech savvy, and that scares them a little bit, because they're like, well, I'm this pelican, I'm this laurel, I should be, more. And since I'm not, I don't want to look bad. It's not about looking bad. We're all here to help each other again. So.
Well, we're all going to constantly grow as long as we nurture that within ourselves and everybody else. I went to a regional fighter practice a year ago, maybe a year and a half. And there was a young gal who saw what we were doing. And she was like, do you mind if I take photos? And I'm like, just ask the people before you take their picture. And then she was like, Well, seems really cool, but I really liked making videos and taking pictures. And I'm like, we have a spot for you. And she goes, oh, but it's recreation. And I said, yes, but everybody loves having those moments that are so personal, immortalized in video or in a picture. Well, could you, I guess, would there be really a spot for that? I'm like, oh gosh, yeah. Fighters love having videos. They love to be able to analyze their fights. I'm like, artisans, they love to have their art looked at. People doing things, they like to be noticed for it. And by capturing, what's going on in video format is just as now more needed in the SCA than it was 30 years ago, 50 years ago. It's something that, in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure there's somebody who got their Pelican for their photography for capturing those moments in the SCA. So, we have to adapt.
Well, we also have to progress, not just adapt, but we have to adapt with progression.
Mm-hmm.
Like Gulf Wars this last year, they had a drone flying overhead. And I'm like, hey, that's great. But it was right before the pandemic. They just started doing that, I think, over in Kingdom of the West or something, where they were doing, I'm like, hey, this is the wave of we're in pandemic mode.
Yeah.
But now it's like, how many fights are going to be filmed by drones? Probably every single battle at Pennsic, because that's going to be the new standard, because people will want to see, hey, how did they move? It's a bigger, broader view of melee combat, which was not seen before, except one camera on the side. So yeah, someone who's going to be doing all drone footage right now, they're going to be the most popular person. Hey, I need this video. Oh, please send this to me. Where are you going to be at next? Okay, I'm going to put a flag on my hat. Can you go and take a picture of me at least 3 times?
One of our viewers just posted it great. She thinks of the streaming court as if she's an archaeologist documenting history in action. And Jermaine is amazing. She is a member of the Order of the Pelican in the Kingdom of Artemisia, and she has streamed every court that she's present for when she is able to, and it's so appreciated by everyone.
Well, especially the ones that aren't there. That's the thing too. It's like, oh, well, I wanted to go, but I can't. At least they still get to be a part of at least court, or make a little bit of the fighting.
Or, hey, I was sick and I couldn't go. And I knew that, my associate, if this person was up here, my associate's getting something, they're getting recognized. So, it's definitely something that we need to look at that as how can we incorporate the culture to begin to accept and embrace that technology in a way that's non-obtrusive or as less intrusive as humanly possible, and allow grace when it's not. You know what I mean? Like you can't hide a camcorder, you can't hide a boom mic. There are situations where those get utilized, but guess what? It's okay. Just ignore it.
Yeah, there's some people that are like, well, we need to make it as accurate as possible. Yeah, we also have to make it so that, hey, people who have hard of hearing or deaf need a microphone and a speaker so they can hear better. And we've been doing a lot more sign language and stuff. But I also know some people are like, well, if we're going to be filming it all the time, most people are like, well, should I go or should I not? Well, you know what? I don't really need to go because I'll be able to watch it. We're not going to really lose people because we're videotaping it. We're giving more people an opportunity to experience what had occurred who couldn't.
Especially with live streaming it. I mean, it's right there. You might be 8,000 miles away, and yet you can see what's going on as it happens. And that's amazing.
Oh, especially like Crown and stuff like that, where people are like,
I remember before live streaming, you would watch, whatever message boards on a Yahoo group. Is somebody posting? I'm going to check.
Or
I'm
they're
going to
like,
check. And then
you
before
gotta
that,
see this. Oh my God. It's like,
before that, it was like the phone chain, like, the old school PTA phone chain where, one person called 3 people and then those 3 people called another 3 people to spread the news. Or you waited until you got your paper, newsletter with Word. I don't know. I lean towards that. I really like the live streaming now because I know what happened, maybe an hour after it's done. Worst case scenario, I get a notification,
and it also still allows the people who are either still immune compromised, maybe still a little scared, whatever, who's like, you know what, I still would like to be there. I just can't right now. Maybe in a year when things get better or whatever. It's giving just more options and opportunity, not eliminating potential people from, well, if we have it, they're just not going to show up. That's not the purpose of it.
Ooh, there's an interesting comment here. It's from Justin Eden. I got into an argument over how we should say yes to newcomers that want a persona based on a favorite character in a fantasy science fiction. I think there is some creative room in our game for this. So, yes and no. This is of the
totally yes.
It is yes, but with the understanding that I can make my persona, Rahmut, a Persian who may have certain elements that are from one of my favorite anime characters, but I'm not going to go walking around in the SCA unless it's a situation that warrants it with, elf ears and little pointy teeth. So that type of space creative room, I only use that for weird fun things. Like we had what was called a bad garb ball that I went to, and it was dress as your worst medieval fantasy garb. So I totally had fun with it, but I was like, oh, pulling out my elf ears that I use for fantasy fairs, pulling out, the crazy underbust corset, and had fun with it. And it's okay. But when it comes to looking at how you can take a fantasy or science fiction character and relate that to a persona, that's where I think it becomes definitely acceptable.
I call it, I said, I want to have an event, and it's going to be called the alternate persona event.
Ooh, those are fun.
And I am going to be called Omar of the Nether Regions. And I had a friend, he's like, oh my God, I have the perfect one. And I was like, what's that? He goes, when I was in Iraq, there was a guy, he said, you must call me Sheik. And I'm like, okay. And I'm going to be called Sheik Yabooty.
Well, and
I'm like, we are on.
There are people whose their personas have very humorous names that they definitely have fun with.
But you can definitely get those people who want to try and get that fantasy aspect, have them at that event, create a crazy little name, and then they can transition.
But like I said, it's that whole, there is some room as long as you go, okay, well, you can't run around with the pointy ears all the time. It's totally okay. If somebody showed up at an event, I would not diss them for wearing pointy ears. I myself, having played for forever, would not wear the pointy ears unless it was a fun event.
Right.
Hey, bring that fantasy in. Somebody says, oh, Aslak the Awful says, Master Aslak says, we had an event a long while back that brought in the Star Trek Club. They were on an away mission. I don't recall the justifications, but they were all in place only to make the fun happen. I have also been at a similar event where there was an away team and it was amazing. And those opportunities, especially in demos, are the best opportunities ever. So I concur. That's a situation that definitely warranted, especially if you have a college or a university where you hold meetings, demos, practices, or events at. It's a great opportunity to recruit, share what we do, and educate. So
Definitely.
I
mean, we
love
mostly started in
ASLAC.
college because, well, we had a whole bunch of kids that wanted to do something, and we kind of like, all right, we're gonna have garb. What does everyone have? Well, I got this and I got this. So strangely enough, we had the we call them Japoscata. Our group was a Japoscata group. So we all had Japanese tops with kilts, and it was like so many stuff. But we looked good and we had fun, and that's fine.
And there's nothing wrong with that. You have to have fun with the SCA. We are a group of all sorts of diverse individuals. The only thing that makes it the one SCA is the fun. If we didn't have fun, nobody would do it. So we have to keep embracing that fun.
Completely agree.
And ASLAC, you just let me know if you need help contacting the 501st. If you don't, if you tell me when and where the 501st are going to be there, I'll be there. Oh, Cal says, as long as we don't violate the Prime Directive, that's for away teams. You know, unfortunately, I am not a member of Starfleet. I'm pretty sure somewhere there's a Romulan outfit hiding in a closet of mine. So I really don't care about your Prime Directive.
I blame the Big Bang Theory for that one, where they go down to a Renaissance festival and they're all dressed up and going, Captain, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. And it was like, oh my God.
Oh, Ulrich, you have been amazing, Your Excellency. I cannot thank you enough for coming on today. And I hope that in the future, maybe you'll come back on again and we can have some more discussions.
Oh, anytime you ask, I will definitely be here. This has been so outstanding.
Do you have any upcoming future shows that you want to plug?
Let's see.
Or other shows.
Right now, I'm just still doing some more of the videos. So I just got done doing one about taking care of yourself before, during, and after, specifically fighting, because we've been in such a long pandemic period. A lot of people are out of shape, and people need to really realize they need to take care of themselves first. They need to figure out their limitations, and don't like, oh, well, I got to go back and, I need to be at that level again, way up here. And it's like, no, just take your time, get to that level. Don't try and hurt yourself. Don't try and speed the process.
And check in with your body. Like, is something hurting? Why is it hurting? Are you having an issue catching your breath? Why are you doing that? Okay, time to go catch your breath. Take a break. It's okay.
As you said, it's been 2 years. People don't realize 2 years is a long time on the body. And for some people, all right, I'm going to go out there. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I think I just hurt my shoulder. Well, because it's been 2 years, you need to take your time. The next video I'm actually going to be doing is actually how to, no, it's a clothing one. It's how to tie a hanbok correctly. I was in Korea a few years ago, and I bought one for a friend, and I had her demonstrate how to put a traditional hanbok on correctly, and I videotaped it. I'm going to be adding that in, since it's something that I think is never seen, and this would be a great way for people who are looking to expand into the Asian personas and everything like that. Here we go. So
I absolutely love that. We have a lot of interesting shows coming up on Kal-bardr's Corner here. With our next show for Coffee with Cal on April 11th, we have gambling swag. Come on, Cal. Yeah. Who does not love all the diverse, eclectic board games with all the little bits and baubles and how to make it even more, even better, even more better. With gaming swag. I love it. So we have that coming up. is not going to be an episode of and a pre-birthday giveaway by Cal. Ooh, Cal, can hosts try to get in on that too? Or is it only audience? I gotta know. I like gaming swag and birthday giveaways. There is not an episode later this month for Road to Retention, little hiatus due to Crown Tournament. So I will be back not until May, but I promise you it's gonna be amazing. And then, of course, the next episode, I think, for our dear friend Izzy isn't until April 25th when she does a look inside youth activities. So you'll want to catch that. Ooh, there's my host or my guest on May 1st. I have King James the Holy. Hell yeah. I mean, hi. So it's going to be a good episode. It should be very fun and very entertaining. Is there somebody in the known world that you want to do a shout out to, Baron Ulrich?
Hate to say there's so many. It's really, certain people have been, when you go someplace, they're kind of like the spotlight. Mm-hmm. And there is so many wonderful things that they can do. One of the people that when I was over in the East Kingdom, his name was Sir Tanaka. Man, the guy was great, helped out at a great demo that we had over in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And so he was teaching fighting and all this other stuff. And then it was like, oh yeah, I used to be a ballroom dancer. So he started teaching ballroom dancing. It's like, you know what? You want to get people involved, get stuff that they want to learn, and he keeps drawing them in. So that was freaking awesome.
That's amazing. I think.
Oh, sorry.
Can we do a Kingdom to the East thing too? Because Rahmut wants to learn ballroom dancing from Sir Tanaka. Please.
I also want to kind of give a nice little shout out to the rapier community, which I think has been doing an outstanding job on recruiting, expanding, doing all great new wonderful things with new tournaments, new ideas. They're really, really getting into the groove. And the last big shout out I want to give is actually to Golf Wars, who this last couple of weeks ago, they put together an event that was really strenuous for, are we having it? Are we not? Are we trying to still get everything as much as we can? The thing that they did so well was they actually had they really promoted teenage participation.
Yes.
They had every night till 10 o'clock a nice teenage community where everyone, like, you know what, go meet some new friends, try some new things, try some dancing, talk about different things. And it was one of the best things I have seen because it really promoted the next generation. And it's something that I think most major events need to have.
Well, not just events. Maybe it's time to start looking at why is there not a youth that kind of works as liaison to each group's governing body that can help, say, hey, this is what me and my friends are into. How can we make this
This is
work?
What we want. Yeah.
We don't want to just, be pigeonholed into, hey, at this age, I can do, youth thrown weapons, this age, youth archery, this age, youth, rapier, this age, I can finally do armored combat. This is what we'd like to see. There needs to be kind of a focus if we want to retain and recruit the youth. Maybe it's time to ask them what they want. What would they like to see?
That is very true.
So
most of them will probably say, we want our own Minecraft community. Okay,
well,
create.
I know a couple of us have our own Minecraft servers and are more than happy to host an SCA Minecraft. Like, just well, fine, we'll just make the server SCA. SCA Minecraft for everybody. Could happen. My shout out for this episode is to the amazing Morrigan Brashura Clubfoot, who is sent on vigil to be elevated to the Order of the Laurel. She is a block printing, fabric stamping goddess. And I am so happy and excited for her. She's being elevated in the Barony of Montaguard and Avakal in June, I believe, on June 18th. Amazing human being, so much knowledge, so passionate about the SCA and her community and the world globally. So that's my shout out. I'm getting teary-eyed because I love her that much. Oh, it has been a pleasure and honor once again, Baron Ulrich. I can't wait to have you back on because it's going to happen.
Oh, that'd be great. It was great of course, to actually finally meet you at 12th Night in person. It was like, I'm going to find her. I'm good. There she is. Beeline right there.
Next time, hopefully I'm not so busy. Although if you ask my dear friend Izzy, I'm always busy. Her and I, we always plan to hang out in an event and never happens. We're just go gadget kind of gals. Thank you everybody for joining us tonight, and have a wonderful evening, morning, afternoon, whatever time of day, whatever day of the week that you're watching. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.